At a time when we're doing all that we can do to rein in spending, decrease our deficit and strengthen our economy, it's imperative that we look for ways to get better results for less money throughout our federal programs and all of our legislative initiatives. As chairman of the Subcommittee on Federal Financial Management, I look in every nook and cranny of the federal government for ways to save taxpayer money by targeting wasteful spending, fraudulent or abusive activity. By focusing on reducing or eliminating waste, fraud, abuse, and inefficiency, we're able to save and recover scarce financial resources that preserve and strengthen our nation's vital programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and our defense operations. Ultimately, though, solving our nation's fiscal challenges will require the federal government to transition from what I call a culture of spendthrift to a culture of thrift. In every federal program that we administer, we can be better stewards of taxpayers' money. Unfortunately, there's no silver bullet to rooting out waste and fraud, but there are many bipartisan and common sense approaches that government can take to begin to see real results. And that's what we're going to do. A lot of people think that there's only two ways to reduce budgets, deficits, and one of those is to cut spending, the other is to raise taxes. There's at least two other ways. And one of those is to grow the heck out of the economy and one of the things, promote trade, promote exports. And we're trying to do that with the adoption of the 3 free trade agreements of earlier this month. The other thing that we need to do is really look at everything we do and say, in federal government, and say, can we do this better? Is there a way to get a better result out of this? Everything I do, I know I can do better. I think the same is true of federal programs. And we just have to figure out what works, do more of that, or what doesn't work and do less of that. Just common sense. And as my father used to say, just use some common sense. He'd be pleased to know that it finally sunk in for me. Select Committee of 12 senators and representatives was formed in an effort to try to realize at least another $1.2 trillion in deficit reduction over the next 10 years. In my view, that's not enough. And I want us to go big. I want the committee to go big and to consider a whole broad range of ideas. Among the ideas that I submitted, bipartisan ideas that I worked on in some cases for many years, among those are the need to to make the president's line item veto powers real, to go into Medicare and Medicaid and find ways to reduce some of the tens of billions of dollars in fraud, some of the tens of billions of dollars in just overpayments, mispayments, inefficiencies, to be able to look at all the tens of thousands of pieces of surplus properties that we don't use, we don't need. We ought to get rid of them and save the federal government billions of dollars. To look at all the IT programs, the information technology programs we have. We probably have twice as many data centers as we need, and we need to reduce those, consolidate those to save again, billions of dollars. There are a lot of common sense things that we can do. They're supported by Democrats and Republicans. In many cases, they're supported by the administration. We just need to do them, and I am trying to bring them to the attention of the Supercommittee so that when they make their recommendations and present everything back to the Congress and the President, they'll include these ideas. Well, the Attorney General of our country, Eric Holder, estimates that fraud in Medicare alone may exceed $50 billion this year. In some cases, we have dead doctors whose ID numbers are still being used to write prescriptions, in some cases to dead people, for controlled substances that are in some cases not used to make anybody better or well, but to generate money, tens of millions of dollars of money for the legal drug industry. We've got to be smarter about protecting, first of all, Medicare provider IDs, making sure that we actually have an accurate list of those folks, providers who are alive or dead, and also to make sure that when beneficiaries die, that we don't continue to provide benefits to them. It's enormously expensive. We ought to be, with today's technology, we can be a lot smarter than this. The other thing is, with controlled substance, we found out that with the help of the General Accountability Office, that we're wasting about $150 million a year just on prescriptions, doctor shopping, going to countless pharmacies for people who don't, in some cases they have addiction problems, but in other cases they just want to get their hands on these drugs to be able to sell them into the drug market. And today, with today's technology, we can largely stop that, and we're going to. If we're going to be a strong, vibrant economy going forward in the 21st century, we need to try to provide a productive workforce of men and women who can read, write, think, use technology, proficient in math and science. And in a lot of cases, that means post-secondary training. We spend enormous amounts of money in Pell Grants, federal student loans, GI Bill, something called tuition assistance, which helps people on active duty in the military to get a better education. In some cases, we get every dime's worth for all the benefits that we're buying and paying for. Too many cases, we have misaligned the incentives, and what we're doing is incentivizing with federal dollars, not the education of people so that they get a degree or certificate that enables them to go out and be gainfully employed and provide for themselves and their families, contribute to the society. But we're incentivizing colleges and universities, a lot of cases, these for-profit colleges and universities, just to get people through the door, sign them up, and not really do a very good job of making sure you get an education and enable them ultimately to contribute. We're going to stop that. And we're going to stop that by making sure that no college or university, whether they're for-profit, private, or public, receives 100% of the revenues from the federal government. That's crazy. And it's not the kind of thing I would count as a governor, and it's certainly not what I want to do as a United States Senator. A guy named Vince Lombardi used to be football coach of the Green Bay Packers. He's a great coach. He also said some memorable things. One of the things he used to say is, if you're not keeping score, you're just practicing. Another way to say that is what we measure, we manage. And in the case of the Department of Defense, they don't measure very well. And they don't have the ability to actually produce audible financials. They've never been able to. They're not anywhere close to doing that. They don't do a very good job in accounting systems, or in a lot of cases, inventory systems. It burns me up that we spend 10 times more for a helicopter door than we ought to be. And then as it turns out, we actually have a year's worth of those in inventory. We just don't know what's in our inventory, and we pay these outrageous amounts of money. God bless Leon Panetta, our new Secretary of Defense, who used to be Chairman of the House Budget Committee. I served with him in the House. He was Chief of Staff to President Clinton. He was also head of the Office of Management and Budget in that administration. This is a guy who gets it, who understands that what we measure, we can manage, and he's working literally hand in glove with us, changing the culture in the Department of Defense so that they will not only be good war fighters, but also be much better stewards of their financials. And I'm just enormously encouraged with that.